Oscar Huber.
What did he see?
Father Oscar Huber of Holy Trinity Church in Dallas, and one of the other fathers at Holy Trinity Church.
And what did they see?
They were the two Catholic priests who administered the last rites.
Commission's investigation involved a visit to Dallas, examining the infamous grassy knoll, the fence on top, the rail yard beyond, and the bridge at the underpass, all sites from which some witnesses believed they had heard gunshots. Witnesses believed they had heard gunshots. The commission found no credible evidence of shots fired from those sites.
The car got directly in front of us. Well, a gunshot apparently from behind us hit the president in the side of the temple.
I can remember seeing the side of the president's ear and head come off.
Possibility of another shot having been fired in synchronized fashion from the right side, the so-called grassy knoll area.
Senator Arlen Specter was a junior counsel for the Warren Commission.
In terms of the single bullet theory, that was what the commission concluded at the end, but that was not the first theory that the commission was working with. Is that right?
Well, the first speculation was from the FBI and Secret Service reports that there were 3 bullets, and the first one hit the president in the back of the neck, and the second one hit the governor, and the third one hit the president in the back of the head.
That's not my report.
FBI agent Francis O'Neill took notes at the autopsy and says investigators were mistaken from the very beginning.
My report said nothing about the first bullet hitting him in the neck whatsoever. I don't know where he got that from.
Agent O'Neill's report states that the first bullet wound to the president struck below the shoulder and 2 inches to the right of the spinal column. The autopsy photo confirms this. But Specter didn't get to see the photos. He had to use drawings prepared under the direction of Commander Humes 4 months after the autopsy. Surprisingly, even Humes didn't get to see the photographs. The drawings were based on his memory.
Any investigator would want to see the photos and the x-rays, and the commission did not have them out of deference to the Kennedy family, but I thought that was a major mistake.
In the day, the commission were left with only 2 bullets to cause all the wounds to both Kennedy and Connolly, and one of those bullets had to have injured both men. To explain this, Arlen Specter, a counsellor to the commission, created the single bullet theory, known to critics as the magic bullet.
The infamous magic bullet. We have that bullet exiting from President Kennedy's neck, moving forward and leftward and downward. It now stops in midair, it turns to the right, it comes back a full 18 inches, stops again, and then slams into John Connolly's back. It continues downward. and it goes through his wrist, and somehow they get that right wrist over to the left thigh. If you look at the Zapruder film, you'll see in the individual frames that John Connolly's right wrist is not near John Connolly's left thigh. The significance of this, the importance, cannot be exaggerated. It is impossible to overstate it. Why? Because the single bullet theory is the sine qua non of the Warren Commission report. I am very, very suspicious, and I do think that it could have been the height of a sinister conspiratorial activity in the post-assassination cover-up in this case to make sure that the brain was not examined in order to be able to disprove, or at least to be able to withhold the attempts by other people, me and other critics, to prove that there was a second gunman firing from the right side. Because again, you see, that gets to the question of whether or not there was a conspiracy.
At the National Archives in Washington, Dr. Cyril Wecht, former head of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, examined bullets the Warren Commission had test fired. To find out if a bullet could break so many bones and remain apparently intact, the Commission used a rifle similar to Oswald's.
And then they got these bullets, all 6.5 millimeter. And they test fired, first into cotton wadding. These two bullets were fired into cotton wadding, striking nothing. You will note that these bullets both have a minimal degree of protrusion of the lead at the base. Otherwise, they are intact, which is what you would expect. The next bullet broke one rib of a goat carcass. Notice, please, it's widening. This bullet struck one of the two large bones that come down from the elbow to the wrist in a human cadaver. They wanted to simulate the fracture of that same bone in Governor Connolly. Please note the substantial deformity. This is classical, typical, when a bullet strikes a dense, heavy bone or some other very firm object. Now, I want you to look at the so-called stretcher bullet. This bullet is the actual bullet that the Warren Commission claims broke both John Connolly's right fifth rib, destroying 4 inches of that bone, pulverizing it, and which caused a comminuted or an extensively fragmented fracture of a dense, heavy bone down near the base of the wrist, and emerged in this condition. You will see that it is near pristine. As a matter of fact, its nose, the cone, the sides of the bullet are completely intact and unscathed.
Do you give to it? It's a matter of whether or not you have a single bullet theory that permits you to conclude that there was only one person firing, whether it was Oswald or anybody else in the world. If you don't have a single bullet theory, then you cannot have a sole assassin. And if you move to that point, then you're into conspiracy by definition. And that's why it had to stop with Oswald as a sole assassin. And that's why they came up with the single bullet theory. There's no question in my mind that that 26-volume set should be taken from the shelves of all the libraries where they now rest in the United States from nonfiction and placed in the fiction shelves.
After Kennedy's assassination, Robert Knudsen never came home. He returned to his family 3 days later, deeply disturbed. He told them he had taken many photographs of the president's body in the morgue at Bethesda, and that it was the hardest assignment he'd ever had. He said the Secret Service had controlled all of the film.
A few days after the assassination, I was at the White House in the press room, and Knudsen came to me, and he said, Joe, I have something I want to show you. So I went back to his sort of a workroom, and he pulled out an envelope and showed me about 12 pictures, 5 by 7, and had all these pictures of the president on his stomach and on his back, and could see the hole here, about 3/8 of an inch. And then a couple of days later, maybe a day later, he said, Joe, do you have a minute? And I said, sure. He said, I want to show you something. Those pictures I showed you the other day, these are the same ones, but a little different. And I said, what do you mean? He said, let me show you. He got the first one out, and I said, no hole. He said, no, they covered it up.